The city was alive with the hum of traffic, the glitter of tall buildings, and the restless dreams of those who lived within its walls. In one of its wealthiest neighborhoods stood a grand house painted white and silver, its gates taller than the trees around it. Inside lived Kwame, a young man who had climbed into wealth after inheriting his father's successful company. His wife, Amale, decorated the mansion with gold-trimmed furniture and crystal lights that sparkled even at noon. To anyone passing by, they looked like the perfect couple, young, rich, and enviable. But deep inside the mansion, in a quiet back room with plain curtains and an old wooden chair, lived another figure. She was Nia, Kwame's mother. Her back was slightly bent with age, her hands rough from years of work, but her heart still beat with endless love for her only son. Every morning, she prayed for him, whispering words of blessing, even though the distance between them seemed to grow wider each day. At breakfast, the tension always showed. Nia sat silently at the edge of the table while Amale scrolled through her phone, pointing at pictures of handbags, cares, and exotic vacations. Kwame, she would say with a smile that was never soft, "We need to upgrade the car." Everyone at the gala drove the latest model. "Do you want people to think we are falling behind?" Kwame would glance at his mother, who quietly ate her porridge without lifting her eyes. Then he would nod at his wife. "Yes, Amala, I will take care of it." To Nia, the words cut deep. It was not the money that bothered her. It was the way her son's eyes, once filled with warmth and respect, now seemed chained to his wife's desires. Sometimes, late at night, Nia would sit by the window, looking at the same stars she had watched when Kwame was a boy. She remembered how he used to run barefoot in the yard, chasing fireflies, laughing, calling her name. He would hug her with sticky hands after eating mangoes and say, "Mama, you are my whole world." That world felt long gone now, replaced by walls of silence and luxury that never welcomed her. Amale, on the other hand, never hid her discontent. One evening, as Kwame returned from the office, she hissed in his ear, "Your mother makes this house feel like a village hut. Guests feel uncomfortable seeing her in those old clothes. Kwame, we cannot build a future while holding on to the past." Kwame looked torn, his jaw tight. His heart remembered his mother's sacrifices, yet his pride craved his wife's approval. He said nothing, only pressing his lips together as he walked away. And in that silence, the seeds of betrayal were already sown. It was a Sunday afternoon when the tension finally broke the walls of silence. The house was filled with the sound of clinking glasses and the laughter of Amala's friends. She had invited a group of women from the city, elegant, dressed in silk, each carrying the fragrance of expensive perfumes. They sat in the living room, sipping imported wine and admiring the marble floors. Amale glowed as she spoke. "This house is a reflection of success. Kwame works so hard, and I make sure we live like royalty." Her friends clapped lightly, their bracelets chiming. Just then, Nia walked into the room, holding a simple tray of tea. Her dress was plain, her feet bare, and her smile was free of makeup, yet carried sincerity. She set the tray on the table, whispering, "You must be thirsty, my daughters. Have something warm." The laughter faded. Amale's friends exchanged glances, some covering their mouths to hide their surprise. To them, the sight of an old woman serving like a maid inside such a rich house was almost comical. One of them muttered, just loud enough to sting, "Is she the help?" Amale's face burned with shame. She forced a smile, but her eyes shot daggers at Nia. "Mother," she said sharply, "I told you not to trouble yourself. We have staff for this. Please, go back to your room." Nia's hands trembled as she held the empty tray. She looked at her son, who sat silently by the corner, his eyes fixed on the floor. For a moment, she hoped he would speak, defend her, remind Amala's friends who she truly was. But Kwame said nothing. That silence was heavier than any insult. Nia turned and walked away, her bare feet soft against the polished floor. The laughter soon resumed. But in Kwame's heart, something cracked. That night, as the house grew quiet, Amale cornered Kwame in their bedroom. Her voice was cold, like steel hidden behind velvet. Kwame, this cannot continue. Your mother embarrasses us in front of everyone. If you want this house to shine truly, she has to leave. I will not live under the same roof with her. Kwame's breath caught. He looked at his wife, then at the door of his mother's room across the hall. For the first time, he realized that soon he would be forced to make a choice. And the choice would change everything. The decision did not come suddenly. It was like water dripping from a cracked roof, drop by drop, until the ceiling finally collapsed. Amale kept pushing, her words sharper each night. Kwame, I have given you patience, she hissed one evening, standing before the mirror as she fastened her diamond earrings. But enough is enough. If you want me, if you want this marriage, then your mother cannot stay. Choose, Kwame. Her or me. Kwame sat on the edge of the bed, his head heavy in his hands. He thought of the days his mother had carried him on her back, walking miles to fetch water. He thought of the nights she stayed awake sewing clothes by candlelight just to pay his school fees. But then he looked at Amale, young, dazzling, admired by the city's elite. She was his pride, the jewel he displayed to the world. In that silent war between memory and desire, desire won. The next morning, Nia sat quietly in her room, folding her few clothes into a worn-out bag. Kwame stood in the doorway, his voice low, almost ashamed. Mother, it will be better for everyone if you stay somewhere else. I will arrange a small place for you. Do not worry. I will send money every month. Nia's hands froze. For a moment she thought she had misheard him. Her son, her only child, was asking her to leave the very house her sweat had helped build. She turned to look at him. Her eyes were not angry, not bitter, only tired. My son, she whispered, if that is what your heart says, then I will go. Kwame could not meet her gaze. Amale watched from the staircase, her lips curved into a satisfied smile as Nia stepped out of the mansion later that day carrying a small bag. The guards opened the gate, and the old woman walked slowly into the busy street. To the neighbors, it looked like nothing more than an old mother visiting someone. But to Nia, each step felt like a nail driven into her chest. She rented a tiny hut at the edge of the city. The walls were cracked, the roof leaked when it rained, and her bed was nothing more than a straw mat. But in that space, she found a strange kind of peace. She cooked her simple meals, whispered prayers at dawn, and lived with memories instead of luxuries. Back in the mansion, Amale hosted grand dinners and parties. The halls glittered with chandeliers, and the clinking of champagne glasses drowned the silence that Nia once filled. Guests laughed, music played, and Amale's smile stretched wider each day. But Kwame's heart grew quieter. At night, when the parties ended, he sometimes wandered into his mother's empty room. Her old wooden chair still stood in the corner, her scent faint on the curtains. He would sit there, in the dark, listening to the silence and feel something hollow inside him. Meanwhile, Nia's absence became a whisper on people's tongues. Neighbors who once admired Kwame now shook their heads. He sent his mother away. They murmured, a man who abandons the one who gave him life cannot truly prosper. Kwame ignored their words, but deep down, he knew the truth. Success had never felt emptier, and in the little hut, as Nia lit her clay stove and watched the flames dance, she knew a time would come when the truth hidden beneath the surface would rise. And when it did, it would shake the mansion to its very foundation. At first, Amale believed victory was hers. The mansion echoed with her laughter, the dining table sparkled with imported dishes, and her friends praised her for finally shaping the house in her image. She walked through the halls like a queen, certain that life would only rise higher from here. But the illusion began to crack sooner than she expected. One evening, Amale hosted a dinner for investors from Kwame's company. The guests arrived in polished cars, their suits sharp, their eyes sharper. As they sat at the long glass table, one of them leaned toward Kwame. Your mother? The man asked casually. We have not seen her in months. How is she? She always carried such wisdom in meetings with your late father. Kwame froze, his fork hovering above his plate. Amale's smile faltered. She quickly spoke. She's resting. She prefers to stay away from the city now. The investor's brow furrowed, suspicion flickering in his eyes. The rest of the dinner passed in polite conversation, but Kwame's appetite was gone. He could not escape the thought people were noticing. Days later, during a charity event, an old family friend approached him. Kwame, he said sternly, I heard you sent Nia away. Tell me it is not true. His voice carried disappointment heavier than anger. Kwame swallowed hard, unable to answer. The friend shook his head. A tree that cuts its own roots cannot stand for long. Meanwhile, Imale grew restless. The jewelry, the cars, the parties, they were never enough. She pushed Kwame for more wealth, more recognition, more luxury. Everyone has their eyes on us, she insisted. We must not fall behind. Buy another estate, expand the company, do something. Kwame tried. He worked longer hours, signed risky contracts, and poured money into ventures that promised glitter. But each deal stumbled. Profits shrank. Employees whispered. Investors hesitated. At night, Kwame would collapse into bed, sweat on his forehead, his wife's demands ringing in his ears. He thought of his mother's gentle hands, the calm she once brought into the house. Now, without her, even the walls seemed restless. Amale, frustrated by the failing attempts, snapped often. You are not the man I thought you were, she spat one night. Without me pushing you, you would still be small. Do not forget who gave you this shine. Amale's hunger for wealth grew like a fire without end. No jewel was bright enough, no estate wide enough, no party grand enough. She began to speak of Kwame not as a husband but as a ladder, one she could climb higher and higher. Late one night, as Kwame returned from a failed meeting, he overheard Amale speaking on the phone in hushed tones. Her laughter floated through the air, warm and careless. Yes, of course. Kwame doesn't see it. He trusts too much. If this deal goes through, the shares will be under my name, not his. I will make sure of it. Kwame froze outside the doorway. His chest tightened, his heart thudding like a drum of war. Was his wife plotting behind him? He stepped back silently, unwilling to confront her yet, but the seed of betrayal had been planted. The next morning, tension sat thick in the mansion. Amale carried herself with sharpness, criticizing everything Kwame did. You are weak, she told him, her eyes cold. Your father built an empire, and you will let it crumble. Kwame snapped for the first time. Do not speak of my father when you cannot respect my mother. She held this house together more than he did. Amale laughed cruelly. Your mother? That old woman knew nothing of the world. She would have left you small and ordinary. I made you a man of status. Without me, you are nothing. The words cut deep. Kwame felt the floor shift under him as if the house itself had turned against him. Days turned into weeks and whispers reached his ears. Rumors that Amale was moving money into accounts he did not control, that she met with certain investors alone. Doubt gnawed at him, but shame kept him silent. If the world knew that his own wife betrayed him, his empire would collapse faster than his pride could handle. Amala, sensing his weakness, pressed harder. She hosted lavish gatherings, often excluding him, speaking as though she were the true power of the household. Kwame's friends began to avoid him, unwilling to stand near a man who had lost his voice. One evening, after yet another bitter quarrel, Kwame stormed into his study. He stared at the portrait of his late father, the man who had trusted him with everything. He whispered, Baba, what have I done? I threw away the one person who truly loved me. For her. But Amale was not finished. She had found a document hidden in the safe, one she could not fully understand. It carried Nia's name, his mother's, and strange numbers that hinted at shares and ownership. She tore it from the file, determined to use it, even if it meant hiding it from Kwame himself. The mansion, once full of laughter and honor, had become a battlefield of silence, suspicion, and betrayal. Husband and wife were no longer bound by love. They were rivals, circling each other, waiting for the final strike. The storm broke not in the skies, but within the walls of Kwame's home. It happened one afternoon when Amale, her greed burning brighter than ever, confronted the family lawyer in Kwame's absence. She demanded clarity about the strange document she had found, the one carrying Nia's name. The lawyer, an elderly man with tired eyes, shook his head. "Madame, you should not have this file. It was sealed by the late Mr. Mensah himself. Only his son and his wife were meant to see it." Amale's voice hardened. "I am his son's wife. That makes me family." The lawyer paused, then reluctantly opened the folder fully, laying the truth bare in black and white. "Your father-in-law, Kofi Mensah, transferred all legal ownership of the estate, the companies, and the vast lands. Not to Kwame, not to you, but to Nia. She is the rightful owner of everything." Amale's face went pale. Her lips trembled, but no words came. The lawyer continued. "He trusted her above all else. He knew her wisdom, her strength. He wanted to protect the family through her. Kwame may act as manager, but the throne belongs to Nia alone." The room spun around Amale. For years, she had mocked that woman, calling her poor, useless, a burden. Now she realized the truth. She had been living in Nia's shadow, feeding on wealth that was never hers to begin with. When Kwame returned, he found his wife trembling, the document crumpled in her hand. He snatched it from her, his eyes racing across the words, his breath caught in his throat. "No," he whispered. "It cannot be." Amale broke down then, her arrogance shattered. "Kwame, listen to me. I did not know. I only wanted us to have more. I only wanted—" "You wanted everything," Kwame said bitterly, his voice low but shaking with fury. "You turned me against my own mother. You made me drive her out of her own house, when all along this was hers." Amale fell to her knees, clutching his leg. "Forgive me. Do not leave me. We can still fix this." But Kwame's eyes were full of fire and tears. "How do you fix betrayal? How do you fix dishonor? You have broken everything." That night, Kwame could not sleep. He walked through the empty corridors of the mansion, the silence pressing in on him. Every corner reminded him of his mother, her laughter, her songs, the way she blessed every room with her prayers. He realized that without her, the house was not a home. It was a prison made of gold. The next morning, he rose before the sun. He drove alone, without his wife, into the outskirts of the city. Dust clung to his car as he reached the humble home where Nia now lived. The old woman was outside, watering a small garden. She looked frailer than before, but her eyes held the same unshaken dignity. Kwame stepped out, his throat tight. For a long moment, he could not speak. He only knelt before her, tears streaming down his face. "Mother, forgive me. I wronged you. I let her poison me. I cast you aside when you were the true heart of our family. Everything I have, everything I am, it was yours first. Baba left it to you. And I betrayed that trust." Nia's hands trembled, but she lifted his chin. Her voice was soft, almost like a prayer. "My son, I carried you when you were too small to walk. I carried you when grief drowned you after your father's death. And I will carry you now, even in your shame. A mother's love does not break. It bends, but it does not break." Kwame sobbed against her knees, while Amala, who had followed in secret, watched from afar, her face drained of color. She knew the truth was not only about wealth, it was about honor, love, and the priceless value of family she had never understood. The sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and crimson. Within that glow, the story of one family found its turning point. Kwame sat beside his mother, his head bowed. For the first time since he had become a man of wealth, he felt like a child again, small, fragile, desperate for love. Nia placed her weathered hand on his shoulder, steady and warm. "Son," she said gently, "wealth is not measured in houses or in cars. Wealth is measured in love, in respect, in the bonds we keep. You forgot this truth, but forgetting is not the end. What matters is remembering." Her words poured into Kwame like healing water. He wept, not out of shame anymore, but out of relief. For inner forgiveness, he found freedom. Amale, still standing at a distance, finally gathered the courage to step closer. Her once proud face was streaked with tears. She had always spoken with command, always demanded attention, but now her voice was small. "Mother Nia," she whispered, "I was blind. I saw you as my rival, not as my blessing. I let envy guide me, and in doing so, I broke a family. Forgive me, if forgiveness can still be mine." Nia turned her eyes toward her, and for a moment the air grew heavy with silence. Then the old woman rose slowly to her feet. She looked at Amale, not with hatred, but with a sorrowful compassion. "Child," she said softly, "I am not your enemy. I am your mother too, by marriage and by duty. My heart cannot hold hatred for you, even after the pain you caused. I forgive you, but know this. Forgiveness is not the same as forgetting. If you wish to walk in this family again, then walk in truth, not in greed." Amale broke down, kneeling before her. The arrogance that once defined her melted away. In that moment, the true wealth of the household shone, not the gold, not the companies, but the unity that forgiveness had rebuilt. Days later, Nia returned to her rightful home, but she did not return as a conqueror. She returned as a mother, guiding her family not with power but with love. Kwame learned humility. Amale learned gratitude. And the servants who once whispered in pity now sang with joy. The mansion, once cold and silent, was alive again with laughter and warmth. And those who heard their story carried a lesson deep within their hearts, that love is the foundation of every fortune, and without it, riches are nothing but dust. The story of Nia, Kwame, and Amale is not just the story of one African family. It is the story of all of us. At some point, each of us has been blinded by pride, by envy, or by the illusion that wealth alone defines our worth. At some point, we have forgotten the hands that once lifted us, the voices that once prayed for us, the sacrifices made in silence that allowed us to stand tall today. And yet, just like Kwame, we are given chances to remember. Just like Amale, we are given chances to change. The true wealth is never in the houses we build or the companies we inherit. It is in the forgiveness we offer, the humility we embrace, and the love we protect. So, as you sit here listening, I ask you, what is your true wealth? Is it the car parked outside your home or the smile of your child waiting at the door? Is it the number in your bank account or the mother who still whispers your name in prayer at night? Take a moment, think about it, because stories like these are not just entertainment, they are mirrors. And sometimes, when we look long enough, we see ourselves staring back. Now, my friend, if this story touched you even a little, if you felt the weight of Nia's tears or the pain of Kwame's regret, then I invite you to be part of something bigger. Do not let this story end with a scroll or a click away. Let it live on through you. Subscribe to this channel, not for me, but for the countless stories waiting to be told. Stories that remind us of who we are, of what truly matters. Like this video, not as a favor, but as a signal to the world that love is stronger than greed, that family is richer than gold. Share this video with your friends, with your family, with someone who needs to hear it. Share it with that brother who has drifted away, with that daughter who feels misunderstood, with that friend who believes money will solve every wound. Let this story find them as it found you. And most importantly, tell me your story. Down in the comments, share a time when forgiveness changed your life. Share a time when family proved to be more valuable than fortune. Share a time when you realized what your true wealth really was. Because this channel is not built by one voice, it is built by many. It is built by you. Imagine this: your words, your experience, your testimony might be the reason a stranger across the ocean finds hope again. Just as you are listening to me now, someone else might one day listen to you. That is the power of stories. They travel, they heal, they unite. And when you subscribe today, you are not just following a channel, you are joining a family of dreamers, of listeners, of storytellers, a family that believes in lessons, in morals, in hope. So let us walk this path together. Let us take these African tales and spread them to the corners of the world. Because no matter where we come from, Russia, America, India, Brazil, the language of love, betrayal, forgiveness, and redemption is universal. It belongs to all of us. And if this video made you think, if it made you pause, if it made you whisper to yourself, I must call my mother today, or I must forgive that old friend, then do not leave quietly. Leave your voice here. Write your truth. Be part of the story. Remember, money fades, beauty fades, even power fades. But the stories we tell, the forgiveness we give, and the love we keep, these outlive us. They are our legacy. So, before you go, subscribe now, like this video, comment your story, and share it with the world, because who knows, the next story I tell might be yours.